comfortable. We're going to get started. Today we have a wonderful event, so I'm really glad we can put this together for the community. And since we have many new faces, I will explain in a second what Product Tank is, because many of you may be coming to the meetup for the first time. So Product Tank is the world's largest product community created by product people for product people, which doesn't mean that we are only product managers. We also welcome product designers, engineers, data people, whoever feels related to building products. And we are here to foster the product development craft. So we welcome everyone who is on that journey as well. And it's easy that anyone may claim that it's the largest community in the world, but I want to give you some facts about how large Product Tank actually is. We are in more than 200 cities. And actually, I don't have the full 2023 numbers, but just to give you an idea of the size of this global community, in 2023 up to Q3, more than 2,000 attendees were in meetups like this one all around the world. And there were more than 580 events all across the globe. So that's quite big, and this is part of the global community we are part of. And you may have seen that this Product Tank is run by Mind the Product, which is the company who is kind of behind all these events worldwide. And Mind the Product is also the global professional network for product people. And what you have in Mind the Product is product training. There's an amazing site, mindtheproduct.com, which has a blog with hundreds of great articles. And also they run a big conference in London and San Francisco, which is kind of a more formal full-day event, which you can actually also see on the website. And you can find in the website also all the talks from past conferences, which for sure I'm sure we will find Jeff among those past talks. So it's a great resource for everyone trying to learn and foster the craft. Of course, this can be mind-blowing how big the community is worldwide. But I also, since many of you are here for the first time, I want to share with you some of the facts of how Product Tank Barcelona has grown over the last 12 months. So you heard that there are more than 200 cities, but actually Product Tank Barcelona is in the top 5 of these product communities around the globe. And in the last 12 months, we ran 10 events. And our member base grew to more than 2,800 people. 80% of that growth was in the last 12 months. And also you have seen here that maybe it's a really big event. We have a lot of people, but over the last 10 meetups, we have 1,700 people joining this community. And of course, we have a lot of great speakers, pizzas, beers, and whatnot. So essentially, please, what we are asking all of you is that you spread the word, help us spread the word. This is done by volunteers like us. So we rely on you to help us share the word that this community exists. So please tell your friends, they really need to be here. And I'm speaking on behalf of the full organizer team. We have Adriana, Karine, Loic, Guido, and Jessica. They all great people are over there, maybe. Yeah. And they also work here in Barcelona in great companies, so we are happy to chat with any of you about hosting events or speaking at Product Tank or about product in Barcelona in any form and shape. Today we are hosted by Adevinta, our great sponsor for this event. I'm really glad to have this great space and all the support they have been giving us. And we'll share a few words about Adevinta.
Great. Round of applause for Nacho and the people from Product Tank for organizing and facilitating this. Now, this is the most awaited moment of the night when I'm going to tell you about this company. Sorry about that. I have to do it. So what is actually Adevinta? Adevinta is an international company that is very much specialized in marketplaces, and I will say second-hand marketplaces. It's present in over 10 countries. It operates more than 25 different products, digital products, mostly marketplaces. And our focus, I would say, is mostly Europe. Even if we are present across multiple countries, multiple, let's say, continents, our focus is pretty much Europe. For you people based here in Barcelona and in Spain, you might know the brands that we have here. That is, for example, Milanuncios on the January site. Then in real estate, we have Abitaclia and Fotocasa. Jobs, that is InfoJobs. You might know that very well. And on the motor side, we have Cochesnet and Motorsnet, and I look after product in Cochesnet and Motorsnet. By the way, my name is Fedele. Again, welcome here in the family. We are product people and we like to match fact with numbers. So what about the numbers related to Adevinta? If we look at the visits that we observe in a monthly basis, over 2.5 billion visits, 1.8 are coming from the core markets that we have here in Europe. As I said, over 25 marketplaces in terms of revenue figures from 2022, 1.6 billion revenue. And the other important fact is that we are more than 5,700 people. Of those, more than 2,700 are actually product and tech people, making us one of the biggest employees in terms of product and tech in Europe. The purpose that we have as marketplaces, as Adevinta, is actually the one of what we like to say, create perfect matches. No? So it's marketplaces, there is offer and demand, and we like to create those connections. So when we create successful product, it's when we are able to create this connection. But actually, connection is not what we try to do. It's also the way that we try to do things, because we are a big company, we are international, we are lots of people located in different places, but we like to create a lot of collaboration among ourselves. So we try to break silos and we create products and brands that are loved locally, but are actually built globally with the collaboration of, as I mentioned, over 5,700 people across Europe. So that's really part of our culture, going beyond what we have here in this office and working all together. That's pretty much us. I leave again the word to Nacho. And again, thank you very much for hosting this.
All right. So before introducing our speaker tonight, I have another of the very expected moments you may have, which is making you a bit uncomfortable, because one of the key reasons for us making these events is that we know new people. We get to know new people, to network with each other. So I will ask you 30 seconds to find someone to your left, to your right, in front of you, behind you, that you didn't know before the event, and you make a quick introduction. We have the name types here to make it a bit easier. So just ask them, what's your name, where do you work, and what's your role? Slides after this. No, do you want to switch machines? Yeah, there you go. Now. I think I have your face again, but I think that's right. That was more successful than I expected. Now you have seen a new face. I should have anticipated this problem getting people back. Should I put an alarm clock or something in the microphone? Is the presentation taking? All right. All right. All right. Now it's time to get to the real stuff. So it's in your best interest to stop now. Okay, if you get something from the networking side of today, you at least met one people. Of course, we encourage you to keep this afterward in the networking area that we'll have after the talk. But I have the pleasure to introduce Jeff Gothelf tonight. We are very lucky because in Barcelona, we have one of the greatest or top product voices in the world. He goes to many conferences worldwide, and we have the luxury of having him here in the city. So please welcome Jeff Gothelf to the stage.
Thanks. Thanks, man. Hi, everybody. Is this thing on? I did turn it on. Can you hear me? You can. Okay. It's weird. I can't tell. This is great. Let's do this every week. Right? This is nice. Right? Every week we should come and do this. This is fun. right, Nacho? Uh, right. We need sponsors. Look, I'm going to spend about 35 minutes, roughly, maybe 40 minutes if I get carried away, talking about objectives and key results and why I think it's a valuable and important way to set goals. Afterwards, we'll do some Q&A, and we'll talk about how to apply this stuff, because the talk is really about why OKRs, and it's focused on, you'll see this come up a lot. Who does what by how much? Not by coincidence. We've written a book, Josh Seiden and I, once again, called Who Does What by How Much, book about OKRs. And so the way, when we work with organizations, this is the way that we teach this material, and it seems to always come back to this question. And so that's why we ended up with this as the title of the book. And you'll see as I go through the presentation, why that makes sense. So we'll go through that. Let's start here. Nearly 4 years ago, almost to the day, next week will be 4 years to the day. February 22nd, 2020, that's me. Those are my daughters, and they were so little back 4 years. And one of them doesn't even live at home anymore. It's really sad. We went to a Barca game at Camp Nou. And if you ever went to a Barca game at the old Camp Nou, soon, I hope, sometime, right? You remember what it was, 100,000 people sitting like this, right? 100,000 people sitting like this in seats, screaming, right? At the top of our lungs, cheering on. You can see all the people there. It was a beautiful day. It was February, it was sunny. We were having the best time. And we thought everything was going to be great. My family was in town. We had plans to do stuff with them. We had plans to travel the next month. I had work trips planned. I had all kinds of deliverables. And everything was going to be great, right? And then 1 month later, literally, not even, actually, it was even less than a month. 1 month later, we're living like this, right? COVID, lockdowns. I had to see my friends. It's all in Zoom calls. I had to wish my parents a happy anniversary, again, over video chat. And what was interesting about that is, again, all of our plans kind of disappeared overnight. All of our ambitions, all the things that we had planned to do went away. We had made some assumptions about the future, right? Everything was going to continue to work the same way. Everything was going to, kind of carry on as it was. And we were working with the best information that we had at the time, right? That's what it seemed like at that time. And something dawned on me at this point, roughly, when, kind of in the heart of lockdown, is that, particularly, like, we can't predict the future, sadly, right? This is not a skill that humans have. And we are constantly guessing. Right? Guessing about what we should do next, guessing about what will happen, guessing about where to spend our time, where to invest our energy. And that's true in life. And it's also true in work, right? We're basing our guesses about the future based on what we know right now. On February 22nd, 2020, everything we knew spoke to having a pretty consistent path forward over the next month. Right? And so we made our guesses, our assumptions based on that. In work, we do the same thing. We make a series of guesses and a series of assumptions about what we're going to make, who we're going to make it for, why we should make it for them, and I think most importantly, how they're going to react to those things that we make for them. Because we have a finite amount of information. Some people, some companies, some teams, some people have more information than others. But we base those guesses based on what we know right now, and we make decisions about what to build, how to design it, how to implement it, who gets it, and to move forward. Now, what's fascinating about those guesses is that our ability to learn whether those guesses were correct or whether they were wrong has changed fundamentally, dramatically. I started my career working on software that went on these CDs. Right. And if you were lucky enough to live in, the United States, France, Germany, or the United Kingdom, you were lucky enough to receive one of these CDs in the mail from us. Now, when we worked on software that went on CDs, we made a series of guesses, a series of assumptions about what we're going to build, why we're building it, how people will use it, and how they will react to it. And we worked on this for 6 months or 9 months, and then we would stop. And then we would print 15 million copies of these CDs, and we would put them in the mail to you. And it would take us weeks and months and sometimes years to learn whether or not our guesses about the future were accurate, right? Because people had to receive it, install it, use it, complain, right, et cetera, those types of things. Here's the amazing thing that's changed since then. So that was the late 90s into the early 2000s. This is today. This is a graphic from the Phoenix Project, which if you haven't read is a great book by Gene Kim. The time that it takes for us to learn today whether our guess was right or wrong has shortened dramatically. Right? This chart shows how frequently big tech companies deploy code to production. Okay, so Amazon deploys 23,000 times a day, Google 5,500 times a day, Netflix 500 times a day, right? Every single time they ship something that took us 9 months or 12 months at America Online in 1999 or 2000, they can deploy literally every minute, every second of the day. And every time they put something out into the world, a guess, right? A guess about what to build, what to make, they start to get feedback on that. They can learn as fast as they want whether or not those guesses were correct. That's the amazing part. Now, you take this infrastructure that's available to us today, and look, I understand that these companies are digitally native companies and that these are the technical leaders in this type of approach. But I just want you to know what's possible. Right? If your company, regardless of where you work, wanted to, it could deploy 23,000 times a day if you wanted to. It's possible. Right? And every time you deploy, you have an opportunity to get some feedback and to learn how accurate your guess was. Now, on top of that infrastructure, we have all the tools and the methods necessary that we need to help us reduce the risk of guessing incorrectly. And the methods and the tools that I'm talking about are things like Agile and design thinking and lean startup and product thinking and DevOps and those types of things. And so we've had this for decades now. Agile's been around since 2001, right? Lean startup has been popular since 2011. Design thinking's been around for decades. Lean UX came out in 2013. Right? The tools, the infrastructure, it's all there for us to build continuous learning and improvement into our ways of working in such a way that reduces the risk of making the wrong guesses about what to build and how to design it, how to implement it. And yet, there is one thing that continues to hold us back, continues to hold back every single organization that I work with. I typically work with large companies, right? Every single organization that I interact with, and the majority of the organizations that I'm aware of, have one thing that slows down, right, our success in reducing the risk of guessing wrong. And that thing is managing the outputs. Okay, what's an output? Let's be clear. Okay, output generally translates into make me a thing, right? Your boss comes to you and says, make me a thing, make it red, ship it by Friday. Okay, that's managing the output. Fixed time, fixed scope, typically waterfall kind of work, right? Make me a thing. Because typically someone with a strong opinion and usually a big salary has made a guess, right? Has made a guess based on their strong opinion about what we should make, what it should look like, how it will work, and what will be the impact and the return on that particular investment, right? That's managing the output. Make me a thing. Rather than, right, saying, look, I need you to solve a problem for me, right? This is an issue that we have. We have to get folks across this intersection safely, right? And literally, these are the two sides of the story, right? One side of the story says, I know how to do this traffic light. Right? Build a traffic light. That will solve this, you think? Right? Have you ever been to India? Right? I have. Traffic lights aren't going to work. Right? Rather than solve this problem, right? What's the outcome that we're trying to achieve? We're trying to get folks across the intersection safely. Whereas the conversation inevitably starts with, make me a thing, right? Make me a thing. And there is so much unknown about whether this is going to work. And this takes time and money and resources to build. We don't know if it's going to achieve the actual desired result. But we spend all our time and efforts building this only to find out later that we were wrong about it to some extent. Inevitably, we're going to be wrong about it. And it's this management to outputs that really gets in the way of us reducing the risk of guessing incorrectly. Now, look, to be perfectly fair, right, there are situations where managing to output makes sense. Right? It's not always the wrong approach. In situations where we know exactly what the end product is going to look like, right? We know exactly what's going to go into the construction, the building, the production of the thing. And we have a clear sense of what people are going to do with it. The majority of people, 99% of the people are going to do with the product. In those situations, managing the output is fine. We've got low risk and we've got high certainty, and we can predict with a high level of certainty what it'll cost, what it'll look like, and what people will do with it. Managing the output in those situations is fine, right? For those of us who make digital products and services, we don't live in that world. Okay, there's way too much risk, there's way too much uncertainty, there's way too much change, and we cannot predict the future. The future is unpredictable. Now, we can talk about COVID all we want. That was a big sort of, event that changed everything for everybody, right? But let's talk about AI, right? Where was that a year ago? Nowhere, right? All of a sudden, that's changing everything, right? Consumer consumption patterns, right? There's virtual reality, augmented reality. There are all these things that show up that we can't predict. Right. And so making these guesses is tough. What we do know, though, the things that we can base our work on, there are at least 4 things that we do know right now that we can start to base our guesses on. The first is, what do people need to do in the systems that we're building? Right? Why are we building them? What do people actually, what's the transaction? What are they actually doing in the system? Right? Not the same question. Right? Hopefully we know that. Why they're doing that. If we're lucky, we know that, right? If we're lucky, because we're talking to our customers, and not everybody talks to their customers, sadly. And then what we need as a business to be successful, right? We can probably build a solid, confident set of assumptions built on these 4 things. Okay, that's pretty good. And probably have a high certainty of that. What we don't know is how to solve those needs. And everyone is going to have an idea about what's going to be awesome. And not everything is going to be awesome. Some things are just going to be bad ideas, right? And we don't know because we can't predict the future. And when we manage to output, when somebody says, this is going to be awesome, let's build it, we run a huge risk of failure. And if we set that as our goal, we're managing the output and we're forgetting about the humans in the process, right? What do people need to do? How do we know we've delivered value? And so we need human-centric goals. OKRs are human-centric goals, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Very, very quick definition. This is the definition that's in the book. You'll probably find 1,000 different definitions. This is ours. We wrote a book, whatever. OKRs, it's a team-based goal-setting framework that defines a qualitative goal. Why are we doing this, right? Why do we get out of bed every morning? And it measures success towards that goal by achieving specific outcomes. What are people doing to tell us that we have achieved the goal? That's it. We are not measuring the completion of tasks as success, and we are not measuring the production of work as success. So we made a thing doesn't count as success, right? Did someone use the thing? That is success, if they did. Right? That's what we're going for. Right. Now, foundationally for this, and this is a key theme in the book, is this idea that everyone has a customer. Now, for those of you who work in a B2C environment, for those of you who build products for actual end users, people who pay you for that product, this is an obvious statement. Right? But not all of us do. A lot of us work in lots of different situations, right? So for example, we've got like the folks in a B2C situation, B2C situation, you know who your customer is. It's your end consumer, right? But maybe you build a procurement tool, right? For third-party vendors, right? That's your customer. You might not think of them as a customer per se, but that's your customer. If you work in a B2B environment, the people at your clients who buy, install, implement, and use your tools, those are your customers. And if you build systems and platforms and APIs and tools for your colleagues at work to use, those colleagues are your customers. And you can actually apply this well outside of tech and digital products and services, right? This idea that everyone has a customer applies to if you work in finance or legal or risk or compliance. I was teaching a class years ago before the pandemic up in La Roca with Telefonica once, and I was presenting this idea, and this woman stood up and she said, "I write cybersecurity policy for the company. I'm a lawyer. I write cybersecurity policy for the company. I don't have a customer." I said, "You're looking at your customer, right? Because I have to go through procurement with Telefonica as a vendor, and I have to read, agree, and then follow your cybersecurity policy, right? And I can't do it, by the way, because it's really difficult, right? Right. So this idea that the people who consume the thing that you make at work are your customers. And when you start to think about your work in that way, setting goals and measuring success becomes a much more human-centric endeavor. And so we're trying to figure out, what are people going to be doing, right? What is their behavior going to be when we give them these products and tools? And that's great, but it comes with one big complication, at least. And that complication is humans. Humans are weird, right? Humans do weird stuff, right? Humans are complex and unpredictable. And it may seem obvious to you because you built it and you designed it and you gave it to them that they should be doing something specific in the tool or the product. And then they go and they don't do that. They behave in a different way because humans are complex and unpredictable. And the funny thing is that even if you nail their behavior, if you get it right, you're like, I knew they would do this, and they do it, right? It doesn't stay still. It moves, right? So let's say you build a social network because you're lonely and you want to rate hot chicks on the internet, right? And then you're like, oh, my friends and family could do it. Like, we could use it to connect with their friends from high school. And that works well for a while. And then we're subverting elections and we're spreading hate online. You never saw that coming, right? Right? Behavior shifts, right? Even if we figure out what people are going to do, it's never static because people change. Consumption patterns change. Behaviors change. And so we need to figure out at every given moment on a regular, continuous basis, given that we can put products into the world 23,000 times a day, right? What do we want people to be doing at every given moment with our products or tools? And that's where this question comes in, right? If we're setting human-centric goals, and we're going to talk about where this fits into OKRs, right? The question that we keep asking is, who does what by how much? That's how we know, right? That's the goal that we set for ourselves to tell us that we've delivered something of value. And what we're describing here is an outcome, right? An outcome is a measurable change in human behavior that drives business results. That's the definition. And perhaps not surprisingly, all the components of that question are right there, right? The human is the who, the behavior is the what, who does what, and the measurable part is by how much, right? And so it's the conversation when you're talking about outcomes always comes back to this key question: who does what by how much, to tell us whether or not we've actually delivered value, right? Value is one of those words that means literally something different to every single person in a conversation, right? In this conversation, value is an outcome. It's a meaningful change in human behavior that delivers a business result. What are people doing differently to tell us that we chose the right solution, that we built it well, that we designed it well, that they get it, that it solves their need, and that we move forward? And here's the other amazing thing about outcomes in a world where you can deploy 23,000 times a day, is that outcomes tell us when we're done, right? The nice thing about managing the output is that once you make the thing, right, the definition of done is clear. Right? Did you make the clicker? Yeah, there it is. I made it, right? Did anybody use the clicker? Did enough people use it, right? It's a different conversation. When enough people, and we decide what enough is, right? Change their behavior in a positive way, that's how we know that we are done. And so what this all means is that we've got to set goals differently, and we set goals with OKRs. And let's take a look at that really quick, right? So if we're going to talk about objectives, right? If we're going to set goals in a human-centric, outcome-based way, we start with our objectives. Our objectives are going to be qualitative. Qualitative means that there's going to be words like the best, the simplest, the most compelling, the most engaging, right? Superlatives, qualitative words. Your objective needs to be inspirational and aspirational. This is why we get out of bed. This is why we go to work, right? We work together as a team to achieve this. It's action-oriented, it's valuable, and it's time-bound. We want to get this by a particular date in time. Let me ask you a question. There are two big things that are not on this list in this description. What are they? What is revenue, like in general? There's no quantitative anything on here. No metrics. That's the first thing that's missing. What's the other one? Time's right there. There it is. Okay. Provides clear value. I'll equate that to maybe. We got metrics. What's the other thing that's missing? Output. Thank you very much. No features, right? In our objective part of the conversation, there are no metrics. It's not quantitative, it's qualitative. And there are no features in this conversation. And the way that we arrive at a good objective is we start with the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Remember the problem, get people across the intersection, right? We start with the problem that we're trying to solve. What are we trying to solve for? Why is it a problem? What do we know about the problem right now? We start with the problem. Here's an example problem, okay? Completely hypothetical. We run a continuing education learning platform for lawyers. We've noticed that customers sign up for our service, take one class, and then they leave. And when they leave, they tell us that our user experience is bad, and that's why they're not coming up. And that's a problem for us because it drives acquisition costs and sales costs and reduces profit. That's a problem. It's a problem statement for us as a business. So we start with the problem. We then ask the question, if we solve the problem, if we turn it into a positive statement, and words are important here. I didn't write on the slide, how do we solve the problem? Right? I wrote, if we solve the problem and we turn it into a positive statement, what does that look like? What does that world look like where that's no longer a problem? Well, that world could look like this. We build an engaging continuing education product for the entirety of a lawyer's career by the end of the year. Right? And what we've done here is we've written our first objective. Right? It's qualitative, engaging. Right? It's action-oriented. It's inspirational and aspirational. This is what we do. We want to be there for the entirety of a lawyer's career, and it's time-boxed by the end of the year. Right? We've written an objective by taking the problem statement and turning it into a positive statement. As you're writing your objectives, one of the things you want to make sure that you do is that you set a goal that your team can achieve. So if you're in charge of an entire product or a business unit or a program, then the goals of that product, business unit, or program can be your goals. But if you're in charge of just one slice of the user experience, let's say you're the authentication team or the search team or the checkout team or whatever it is, right? You're going to set an objective that reflects only that world that you can influence. Because if you sign up for a goal that's 2 or 3 levels above you, you're never going to make that goal. There's too many dependencies and you're going to fail. So you want to set your objective within your sphere of influence. Okay? That's objectives. Key results. Key results are our metrics. They answer the question, how do we know we've achieved the objective? They're quantifiable. Metrics, I'll say it again, metrics here. Typically ratios or rates, percentages. They tell us how we're trending, 25% more of this, 50% less of that, right? You can use absolute numbers if you don't have a baseline, but the ratios and the rates tell us how we're trending. It should be aggressive. You should not be hitting 100% of your goals every quarter. I should be able to verify your results with evidence, analytics, reporting, market research, customer research. And most importantly, the most important part of this entire presentation, and it's so important, I put a red line underneath it. That's how important it is. Your key results must be outcomes. They must be measures of human behavior. They have to be. That's what changes this. That's what makes this interesting. That's what makes this difficult. And that's what makes this different, right? If you put a feature here and output here, we're right back to where we were before. Even if you wrote a great objective statement, right? If you said we want to become the best, online learning platform for lawyers in the world, and we'll do it with a dashboard, right? You're exactly back where you started. You might call it OKRs, but nothing's changed. What changes is when your success criteria is an outcome. It's a measure of human behavior. And perhaps I've already answered my one question. There's one thing that isn't on this list that was also missing from the first list. Features, right? Features, again, solutions, right? In our goals, we are not going to talk about how we are going to solve the problem. And so the way that we get to good key results is we have to actually define our target audience, right? Whose behavior do we want to change? Right? And that could be, it's whoever consumes the thing that you make, right? So everybody that we talked about before, current customers, prospective customers, users, colleagues, third-party vendors, leadership teams, designers, product managers, whatever it is. Those are the people whose behavior you want to change. And then we ask the key question, right? What will those people be doing differently if we achieve the objective? How will their behavior change? Right? In the case of our online learning service for lawyers, I want to see a 50% decrease in the number of existing customers leaving the service due to its user experience. And guess what appears in a well-written key result? Right? There it is again. Who does what by how much? You know you've written a good key result when all those three elements are there. Right? Existing customers is my who. What are they doing? They are leaving the service less. Right? By how much? 50%. Every time, if you can answer that question, at the very least, you've written you've followed the template, right? We'll figure out if it's a good one later, right? And it's important to think about kind of where to level set those outcomes and those key results, where they fit in, because there's these three things that we talked about output, right? Output is the stuff that we make. Products, features, solutions, campaigns, policies. Outcome is the behavior change we want to see in the system, right? When people are using the thing, when they're in the product, in the service, that's what people are doing. We want to observe that. Impact is the high-level measure of the health of our business. Typically, it's the stuff you'll see on an executive dashboard: profit, revenue, sales, customer satisfaction. Overwhelmingly, we want our key results to sit here, unless you operate at the kind of the executive level. Right? If you're leading a product team that's building a product, you're looking for the stuff that people do in the product. And I'm gonna prove it to you. Okay? Here we go. Let's leave the digital world for a minute. Just for a minute. Bear with me here for a second. Okay? Let's imagine for a second that you're no longer digital product people or designers or leaders or whatever it is that you do, and you are now the proud owners of a mattress store. Okay? A real life brick and mortar mattress store. In fact, here's your store. Right? Congratulations. Right? You now own a mattress store. Let me ask you a question and just shout it out. If you're the owner of the mattress store, what are the impact metrics of your store? The high-level measures of the health of your business. Sales, good. What else? Customer footfall. Save that one for a second. Customer satisfaction. Margin, yeah. Returns, maybe, right? That kind of thing, right? Sales, profit, revenue, that type of thing. Maybe number of mattresses sold. Amazing. Okay. Now, what are the observable behaviors in the store that your customers do that lead to those impact metrics? Now say it. Footfall, people coming to the store. What else? Test. How do you test a mattress? You lie down on a mattress. That's really good. What else? Time spent on site. Absolutely. 100%. What else? Talking to salespeople. Very good. What else? Buying ultimately, right? Ultimately buying. What else? Conversion through the funnel, but so what are the steps in the conversion funnel? That's kind of what I'm getting to, right? Second visit, say it again. From test to sales, right? So we tested it, which is really good. So we've got coming to the store, lying on a mattress, hopefully lying on more than one mattress. Who are you coming to the store with? Are you coming by yourself? If you're single, yes, correct. Right? Let's just put it this way. If you sleep alone, yes. If you don't sleep alone, the answer is no. You do not go mattress shopping without the person that sleeps next to you every night. Take it from me. Right? Lying on mattresses, talking to salespeople, asking about price, maybe asking questions about removing my old mattress or delivery, those types of things. Okay, good. We've got those. Now, what could you do to the store? How would you design the store? What features would you implement in the store to drive those behavior changes? What would you do? Yeah. Try me on the mattress. Very good. What else? Say more about that. We're going to have a showroom because it's a store, but like, what are we going to do to the showroom? And there's hints in the picture. Yeah, good lighting, right? And should it be bright or should it be dim, right? Maybe, right? What else? For the prices, big prices. Very good. What else? Right. Lots of salespeople who know what they're talking about. All right. That's good. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So like, are you going to lie on a strange mattress with your shoes on? I mean, if you're savage, no, we're not going to do that. Right. But I don't want to take my shoes off in the store either. Right. So we're going to put these covers at the end to encourage you to not have to take your shoes off. Anything else? Music, right? Ambiance. A corner for the kids, right? Promotions, right? All kinds of, right? All right. Everything that we just listed right there, that's output. Those are the features of your store. You've designed your store that way. And you've designed it that way to drive certain outcomes, certain behaviors. People coming to the store, coming more than once, coming with a partner, asking questions, spending time in the store, trying out mattresses. If those features, everything that we just talked about, try me sign, big prices, smart salespeople, nice music and ambiance, right? If it doesn't get people to lie down on mattresses, to ask questions, or to come into the store, those features didn't work. Right? The measure of success for us is not a try me sign, forgive me. It'd be the most awesome sign ever, right? But if it doesn't get somebody to try the mattress, it didn't work, right? The measure of success is the behavior change in the people that consume the thing that we make. I'll tell you a really quick story about this. We did this exercise years ago with a group of Norwegian design students, and they came up with a brilliant idea. They said, take all the mattress information and put it on the ceiling above the mattresses. Super smart, right? I love it. They loved it. We all loved it, right? But if it doesn't get people to lie down on the mattress, because if they're going to look around and be like, where's the information? Right? I don't see it. If it doesn't get them to lie down on the mattress, it didn't work, no matter how beautiful or amazing the idea was, right? And so the takeaway from all of this, right, when you set human-centric goals using OKRs, is that the product is the variable, right? Which I think is kind of a radical concept, right? The way we implement the product sometimes is a variable, or design, or the copy, or the feature set, or whatever it is. But it's so rare, at least in my experience, that the product is are we going to ship it? Are we not going to ship it? Right? The fact that the product is going to change based on human behavior is a fundamentally different approach to building products, because the measure of success is actually changing human behaviors, right? So if we're going to write good OKRs, we want to be the #1 seller of mattresses in the Metro Barcelona area by the end of the year. How do we know? We're going to increase foot traffic by 150%, 50% increase in on-site to offline referrals, and a third of the traffic comes in with their partner. And that's what I've decided are the good metrics for that. If we're doing our online learning service for lawyers, you've seen the objective before, right? The key results could be each user takes at least 3 courses. That's a 300% increase. 25% of new customers come from word-of-mouth referrals, that every law firm that signs up registers at least half of the staff. I want to show you one more good example of this. This is from the healthcare world. This is from an organization called the Cleveland Clinic. Cleveland Clinic is an international healthcare organization, perhaps not surprisingly headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States, but it is a global organization. And they've been using OKRs forever, and they publish them publicly every year. I think this is from 2020 in this case. And there's a couple good ones that I really like here. Best place to receive care anywhere. Qualitative, aspirational, inspirational, right? Clear value. This is why we get out of bed. And it's time boxed because these are annual goals. Okay? Amazing. How do we know? We're going to reduce the absolute number of serious safety events. Okay? And we're going to reduce the rate of serious safety events. Right? That's compelling. Super interesting. There's another one I really like on here. Best place to work in healthcare. Same thing. Right? Qualitative, aspirational, inspirational, internally facing, right? Somebody's got to build the best place to work in healthcare. How do we know? People would recommend it at a high rate to work here. And this idea of regrettable turnover, people quitting voluntarily, especially people that we like and we don't want to quit. We want that number to go down. Right? Again, how are we going to do this? We're going to figure it out, right? But the idea is to really get a sense of what is the behavior change that we're trying to do, right? So let's talk about why even do this? Actually, it's a simple idea. It's really difficult to implement. Okay, first reason, and these are my top three. So I'm sure there are other threes, but these are mine. Because we don't put features in the objective or the key results, we are explicitly demanding that our teams do product discovery work. Right, to figure out the best combination of code, copy, and design that's going to achieve the behavior change, right? Product discovery work is research, it's design work, it's talking to customers, it's prototyping, it's experimenting, it's proofs of concept, it's getting out into the field, right? When we do that discovery work, we get to know our customers. We start to build a customer-centric organization and develop real empathy for the people that we serve because we talk to them and we see them and we give them stuff to try out and we see what works and what doesn't work. And in doing so, in building discovery into our ways of working and building empathy, we start to collect evidence that tells us if our ideas are actually going to achieve the key results. And if we collect evidence that says that our idea isn't going, our solution, our feature isn't going to achieve the key result, well, now we can justify changing course because we've got the evidence. Changing course based on evidence is agile. It is organizational agility. Lowercase a, not the religion with the big A, right? Lowercase a, right, is changing course based on evidence. And the more of this that we do, the better we understand our customers, the more evidence we collect, the more agile we are as an organization. And the way that we do that is through research and experiments, right? We go out into the world and we try to understand why people behave in certain ways, right? We try to figure out if there are unmet needs with our users and our customers. We observe them to learn, right, what they do when we're not there watching, and we talk to them to understand why they're behaving in a particular way and what we might be able to do for them to make them more successful and perhaps just alive at the end of the transaction, right? I'll show you one more example of experiments that I love. This is from Rotterdam in the Netherlands. This is, people ride bicycles in the Netherlands a lot. One of the big questions is where to put the bicycle racks, the parking for the bicycles. It's a commitment of steel and cement. And if nobody uses it, it's waste, right? We took a guess, we tried to predict the future, and we were wrong, right? In Rotterdam, they have a bike rack the size of one car parking spot on wheels. And they move it to different spots in the city. And then they see if it impacts human behavior. Do people use it? Do they use it daily? How many people use it? And they have a threshold. And if they cross the threshold of human behavior change, they make it permanent. And if nobody uses it or it doesn't cross the threshold, they move this somewhere else in the city, right? Because they can't predict the future. And they've got a way to reduce the risk of guessing incorrectly. Okay. One last quick thing, because this comes up a lot, and maybe I'll answer some questions, right? OKRs are hard. They're hard for a lot of reasons. We're going to talk about just 4 quick things about what makes them hard, and then I'm going to wrap up and do Q&A, and I think pizza and beer at some point. Let's talk about these 4 things. OKRs work well when you set them up top down and bottom up. Most organizations that I work with set them top down, push like revenue goals onto everybody, and then say it's an OKR, go away, make revenue, right? And you're like, but I'm on the I'm on a data science team. I'm like, yeah, make revenue. It's like, it doesn't work, right? What we want our leaders to set organizational OKRs, and then we want to present back what goals we set for our teams that we believe are leading indicators of the strategic goals. And we meet in the middle, ideally, and we do some negotiation, right? Our leaders see everybody, right? But the idea is that it's top down and bottom up. That's how this works well. If the key result is an output, we've talked about this a lot tonight, the OKRs lose efficacy. We're right back to a waterfall. We can ship features 23,000 times a day. It's not the measure of success anymore. It's a non-event, right? The event is making our customers more successful. It's got to be human behavior. This is really important. I talked a little bit about product discovery. If you've read Lean UX, you know it's near and dear to my heart. Many of the organizations that I work with don't know how to do this, right? And it's required. It's required for OKRs to succeed, right? We have to give our teams a framework in ideation and decision-making for determining which solutions to actually build, right? We've got design thinking and Lean UX and Lean Startup and whatever else for this, right? Many organizations don't know how to do this. And some organizations that do know how to do this don't allow their teams to do this. You can't talk to customers, right? I don't really want to run any experiments. I know what's best, right? I'm sure you've never heard those, right? That's something that has to change, right? This is what makes OKRs hard, because this is required to make OKR successful, because the goal, right, the solution isn't in the goal, right? Last but not least, this is a high level issue. If you work in leadership, right, we have to start to really rethink rewards and incentives. Most companies incentivize delivery. Did you make a thing? There it is. You know why? Because it's easy to measure. You can see it, you can touch it, you can use it. Did you ship it? There it is, right? It's binary. Yes or no, right? Measuring key results, changes in human behavior is a scale. If I ask you to increase retention by 50% and you increased it by 29%, is that good? Is that bad? Do I reward you? Do I fire you? Right? I don't know. Right? It's difficult, right? And so we've got to start to change our incentives to match what OKRs need, which is learning, customer centricity, and evidence-based decision-making. The last thing I'll say is this. Look, OKRs are hard. It's a simple concept, but it's hard. They're supposed to be. It's goal setting. It's alignment. It's strategy. It's kind of the manifestation of strategy for an organization. And so if we work to set human-centric goals and we push for this, we should expect for this to be difficult. But the results on the other side will be better products for our customers, more successful customers, and ultimately, ideally, a more successful business for us as well. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, hello, folks. I'm Jessica, so I'm going to take the lead on the Q&A, but first, can you give me a round of applause again for Jeff for the amazing presentation?
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you all have a lot of questions, because OKRs are hard, but to answer a question about OKRs, I think is harder. So, Jeff, are you ready for that?
Answering the questions is easy.
It's easy. Okay, so let's test Jeff and ask. No, sorry, Jeff. Okay. Anyone here that has a question? I see lots of questions. I have Karine over there who will help me, and we're going to be this way on the next one.
Yeah. Okay. One of the biggest challenges that we affront when we try to set OKRs is that you try to measure, or whenever you are trying to set the key results, is that you try to measure, or do you try to point in a direction and say, okay, yeah, we are going to improve this by 30%.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you don't have any baseline, if you do until now you haven't had any data previously, how can you say, okay, yeah, raising this by 50%, it will be, we will get to to a certain point, or we will achieve any goal?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Where do the numbers come from? Look, if you don't have any data at all, then setting a ratio or a rate is impossible, right? Because it's 30% more or 30% less, right? So ideally, you're going to start with an absolute number. We're going to acquire 5 customers. Today we have 0, right? We're going to acquire 5 customers. Once we hit that, we can say, okay, great. That took us 6 months. So for the next 6 months, we'd like to do a 20%, 20, 30%, year-over-year customer growth, for example, right? So you need, like, if you don't have a baseline, you can start with an absolute number that simply makes sense for you as a company, right? So in a B2B situation, let me just put this down. In a B2B situation, right, acquiring 5 customers is a decent goal, right? In a year, we're going to acquire our first 5 customers. Great, that was year 1. What about year 2? Right, we could acquire 5 more. That's 100% growth. Right? Maybe we want to do 300% growth in acquisition. Right? We start to set targets with the percentages once we do have a baseline. So if you don't have any baseline, starting with an absolute number, I think, is fine. Ultimately, was that your question?
Yeah,
it was. Okay, because there's another question about how do you choose the number, and I wasn't sure if that was the second half. Okay, all right, good.
John.
Yeah.
Okay, I see this guy first. So.
Okay, mine is about quantity.
Yeah.
One of the probably symptoms that you're not setting the goals correctly is that you have maybe too many OKRs.
Yeah.
First question, which is more or less the right number to see that you're on track? And also, you didn't talk about the initiatives, but that go after the key results.
I didn't.
And another symptom that I have at my own company is like initiatives at the end tend to be growing a lot. And are pointing to the OKRs.
Yeah. So let me talk about both of those things. So first of all, how many OKRs, right? Let's talk about the ideal scenario, right? In an ideal world, you have 1 objective and no more than 3 key results, right? That's, to me, I think that's more than enough for a team to work on for a quarter or 2 quarters or however long it takes. 1 objective and no more than 3 key results. Like that, because look, the OKR is supposed to tell you what's important, what to focus on. Right, so if you have 3 objectives and each one has 5 OKRs, all of a sudden everything is important. How do you prioritize? How do you choose? So the fewer, the better. Ideal case, and again, I'm speaking in generalities. 1 objective, no more than 3 key results. Like that's the goal. Now, initiatives is interesting, right? Because where do they come from? Right, so they come from our backlog, which already exists. They come from our executives who have lots of ideas in their heads. They come from people who are like, oh, the competition is doing it, so we have to do it, right? And we're never going to run out of ideas about what to make. The way that I think about it is this. Your OKR functions as a filter for your backlog. Like the way I kind of envision it's like a filter that sits on top of the backlog. And so we've got this long list of ideas. Right? And the only way anything even makes it into consideration is if we can positively say that we believe it's going to help us achieve the key results. Right? So the list is going to be really long. Right? The first filter is which of these ideas is going to help us achieve this quarter's key results. Right? There's no way all of those things are related to 1 or 2 behavior changes. Right? So we use that as a filter. That's going to reduce the list. Still going to be a lot of stuff in that list. The next thing, right, is then to say, we get back into the guessing game a little bit. Which of these do we believe or do we have evidence to say is likely to drive the biggest behavior change? And we want to write that up as a hypothesis statement, right? Because when you write it up as a hypothesis statement, you're introducing doubt into the feature. Rather than saying we're going to build a mobile app, We're going to say, we believe we should build a mobile app for our current users because it's going to drive at least half of our revenue through the mobile channel. Okay. Right, now we've got a story to tell about why this is important, and we've got a revenue goal, or we've got a usage goal, or we've got a mobile channel goal, right, as our key result. And so we want to have those conversations that always bring back the key results as the reason for doing something. Now, to be super clear, we're still guessing. Until we get out there and start experimenting and doing product discovery work, we don't know that this is going to work this way. But at least we're filtering the work based on our current set of goals. And ideally, it's a small set of goals. Does that answer the question? Roughly, high level. Okay.
You want to pick the next one? Right in the middle. You go. Perfect. Perfect.
Teamwork.
Okay. Okay. Does it make sense to set OKRs for a product that is not live yet, when you know that you cannot really measure the customer change and behavior?
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to get? I mean, can you get any data on it? I mean, you could do usability, you could do qualitative testing, I guess.
You have some data, but you can't see yet how it's going to affect your users.
Here's what I think. I think it's important to know how you're going to measure the success of the product, right? So the short and if you think about it that way, the short answer to your question is yes. It makes sense. It's just you're delaying when you're going to learn, right? And the risk of that is you're going to build the whole thing, and then you're going to expect some kind of behavior from your customers, and it may or may not happen. And you've built a whole lot of investment in the product up until that point. And so my challenge would be back to you is to say, okay, let's say you can't ship for whatever reason, you can't ship for a while. Okay. What can you learn now? Right? What can you learn next week? What can you learn next month before shipping that starts to reduce the risk of building something people don't want? Right? And so that's where, again, product discovery, experimentation, research, design comes in. So it'll help you reduce the risk of making product feature and design choices that are going to be, increase the likelihood of choosing features and designing them in a way that is going to succeed, right? So if you really can't deploy anything publicly for a while, at least build learning with real users into the process along the way, so that as you're building, you're getting a better sense of, yes, I think people will use this. Yes, the workflow seems to make sense. Yes, it seems like they can get to the end of the process, right? But otherwise, you're building a whole lot of risk. And
another question is in the room. Okay.
Hi, Jeff. My name is George Pop. Great presentation.
thank you.
I have a question about the transition from the traditional goal-based approach that companies typically used to have to this OKR-based approach. So we have noticed that in the last number of years, many technology companies changed from the project-based approach to a product-based approach. Right. That's already a philosophical change, a significant change.
Yeah.
Do you see in your experience that the OKR is an absolute mandatorily must thing to adopt if you want to do a proper product-based approach, or you think product-based can still work with objectives the traditional way? This is my first question. And very related to that one, can you comment on how you notice the speed of conversion from companies who have been using goals, traditional, moving to more OKRs, what you see in the market?
Yeah. Okay, so first question, is it mandatory to do OKRs to really build sort of modern products or to kind of thing? Look, I don't think it's mandatory, but I think it's the right approach, because it not only builds in the right goals, but it starts to set the right cultural expectations, in the sense that we're building space in the organization for course correction. When we build space for course correction, we are explicitly admitting that we're going to be wrong. Right? We're not going to be 100% right about this. And that's a huge change in a lot of corporate cultures, right? In a lot of corporate cultures, especially back in the project days, you were not allowed to be wrong, right? I mean, we could do a post-mortem and be like, ha ha ha, it didn't work out as we planned, right? But on the way there, everybody was determined, heads down to do it. And so what I like about this is it builds in the bandwidth for not the bandwidth, but the psychological safety for course correction in this. And the more people feel safe learning and then adjusting course based on that learning, the better success we're going to have, the better products we're going to build. So is it mandatory? No. Is it a better way of building products? Yes. Your second question was, how long does it take companies to convert from sort of the old goal setting ways to OKRs?
What you see happening in industry, how what the velocity of companies changing?
Oh, I mean, everyone's talking about it. It's kind of like, it's kind of like Agile, 10 years ago where everybody was talking about it. I think people are still doing it, but I think everybody's talking about it. The level of maturity is still very, very, very low. I think a lot of folks are just a lot of companies are rebranding goals as OKRs and not really changing anything. Or the other thing that they're doing is they're creating OKRs that match the work they already have planned, right? I see that a lot. Well, we've already committed a year's worth of effort, so we'll just figure out some goals that match for that effort. So the level of everyone's talking about it, like really, like it's a significant conversation in pretty much every interaction that I have. But the level of maturity is very low because look, it comes back to this incentive thing. At the end of the day, most companies incentivize delivery. They reward it, they promote it, they celebrate it, and if we shift to this, it's not delivery that gets rewarded; it's making the customers more successful. Right. Just yesterday, I was speaking with one of my clients, a big financial services company, and it was an EVP who sponsored this transformation program that we're helping with, right? And one of the teams killed their hypothesis, and we literally had to be like, look, they decided not to do this, and this is great news, and we should reward this, and we should celebrate this. We had to kind of deliver it on a platter, on a tray for him, because otherwise it would have just been like, oh, why didn't they build that, right? And so you really have to force the culture to stop and recognize that when you've learned that something shouldn't be built, that's also a win, right? We've saved money, and now we can focus on solving the problem in a more meaningful way. And the incentives and the reward systems, the performance management systems in most companies do not reward that right now. That's an issue. It's a big issue. Yeah.
Sorry, we only have time for 2 more questions, so I'm here and then one more. And
sorry, one. Sorry,
unless
guys.
Jeff, you
Sorry
want to?
for-
Well, I'll stick around. I mean, we can take 2, and then I'll stick around for a while.
Yes.
And
with a beer, which is
With a beer.
better.
much better.
Hey, first of all, thanks a lot for your amazing presentation. And secondly, the question. So I work in a pretty small company where like half of the year means long term. And in this case, I have a really common question. How often is it better to set up the OKRs? Is it like project-based stuff for every Scrum sprint or for the 1 quarter or something like that?
So again, speaking in a general sense, right? Because I don't know your specific context. Generally speaking, the rule that we try to go with is an objective should live for roughly a year, and key results are checked in quarterly, right? Roughly, that's the schedule. So we want to check in on our key results quarterly. The objective is usually a year-long objective, but it doesn't have to be, right? That's one of the things. Again, we're guessing. We can't predict the future. And so one of the benefits of working this way is that we collect evidence along the way. And if we check in on a quarterly basis, part of that conversation is, does the OKR still make sense? Right? Is this the right objective? Has something changed in the world since then? Does the key result still make sense? Right? Sometimes we'll set a key result, and after a quarter, the team will come back and say, we did it. We hit 100% of the key result. What do you want to do next? Right? Sometimes the team will come back after a quarter or 2 and say, there's no way we're ever going to hit this key result. And here's the evidence to justify that. And so that allows us to make better decisions in shorter cycles based on what we know now. We didn't know it before, but we know it now, right? So roughly speaking, we set an objective for the year and key results on a quarterly basis, but nothing says they have to live that long, right? Or they may live longer. Again, we can't predict the future, but that's a good place to start. That make sense?
Okay, the last question. I'm sorry. I know that everyone is raising their hand and looking in my eyes to next me, but I have one here.
Yay. Thank you. Thanks for the great presentation. I'm Yochai, product manager. I asked management to define goals for the entire year, and I would derive my OKR or 2 OKRs in my case from these goals, and they refused to do that. My idea is that everything should be aligned, that my product will row in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips on how to convince them, or is this?
Well,
is this a battle that I should skip?
I mean, but why are they fighting it? What's the pushback? What's the resistance?
They say every product is different and it lives in its own world, and we should have different goals for it.
So I don't know where you work, so I'm going to speak in generalities again, right? So if products are part of a system or a program or a suite, then sure, it makes sense for them to kind of live within at least an overarching business goal where all those products support that overarching business goal. But if you're truly developing sort of a product for this industry and then a product for this completely different industry, then maybe it doesn't make sense, right? And I think, look, one of the ways that you might want to work towards that is there duplication of effort? Is there waste that's happening because everybody's pulling in different directions? Are there learnings that one team is picking up that aren't being shared and helping other teams? If you can illustrate that waste and quantify it, right? People listen to money, right? Can you quantify it in euros? Can you quantify it in dollars? That goes a long way to getting people to listen. Like to EVP that I was speaking to yesterday, we quantified the savings of not building the hypothesis. That mattered a lot more than we killed a hypothesis. Right? We saved $100,000. Okay, that's a much more. And so if you can quantify, if you can figure out where there's duplication of effort or loss of efficiency or whatever it is, and quantify that and be like, look, we are wasting 75,000 euros every quarter because of these 3 things. Somebody should listen. If they have, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Before we wrap up, really quick, 2 things I want to call out. Number 1, I've put this up on the screen a couple times. That's Jeff Patton, if you don't know. Jeff Patton and I are teaching for the first time live since the pandemic. He was the last person I taught with before the pandemic, and I love teaching with Jeff. We're going to do a class here on April 8th and 9th. Technically it's a certified Scrum product owner course, and Jeff certifies people. But we're going to talk about stuff like this. We're going to talk about OKRs. We're going to talk about product discovery. We're going to talk about user story mapping, et cetera. And you will get a CSPO certification at the end of it. If you use the code PTBCN10, you get 10% off any of the prices there. That's the URL. You can scan that to get there. That's the first thing. I just want to let you know. We'd love to see some of you there. Bring the team. We've got team discounts. And that's Aida. And she runs my business for me and many, many other things. And she's awesome. And she's got to sign up a mailing list like an old school pen and paper mailing list sign up, because that's how we figured it out in a short amount of time. If you sign up, I've got an OKR, a self-paced OKR video course. If you give her your email address, we'll give you a free seat in that course, and then we'll send you this 10% code so you don't forget about it as well. So she's got pen and paper there, and if you say hi to her, and she speaks literally every language that all of you speak, like all of them. So you can talk to her in any language. Otherwise, that's it.
The true boss then.
True, absolutely.
Okay, please, folks, a round of applause for Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much. Okay, before moving to the second best part, because first was Jeff, the beers and the pizza, let me wrap up the presentation today. So here you will see a QR code for a feedback questionnaire. And I hope that you can feel this. We are learning by doing, and we are a product community, so we're really looking forward for your feedback. So if you really like it, please tell us why, because we wanted to keep doing it. And if you don't like it, tell us why. And well, come back again. Maybe we're going to be better. And also, if you wanted to leave some comments for for Jeff, also we're going to hand it over to him. And last but not least, here, of course, we have social media. So follow us here. We're going to share the photos for today, share the news for the next Product Tank events. And yes, of course, the two things that I have to tell. First of all, as you know, we are a group of volunteers doing this, and also they are volunteers for hosting the event. Today's is Adevinta, so thank you so much, Adevinta. Applause for them. So if you happen that, if you work in an event place to host, if you have a company also as well, and you wanted to have all of these beautiful people there in your company, so please contact us through any channel of these ones, or even in the document here. And last but not least, if you think you have something to say on a Product Tank, please also join us as a speaker, because we are always looking forward to that. So thank you so much for joining tonight. We see you, all of you, in the beers over there in the other place, and hope that you have enjoyed. Thank you.